Hello and welcome to my site. Now, so far, we've been doing things in the project sort of bit by bit. For instance, we had to wire up the lights, we had to do the sound, they're all separate things. We had to make the streak button work, we had to make the on and off work. They were all separate. But we've now got to the stage where we have to sort of think more. So what I've done is I've made a flow chart, and this is what you do. The reason I didn't make the flow chart before was it wasn't really needed and we we're doing everything separate. So I've done everything as separate as I can. And now I don't think I can do that any longer. So we have to sort of piece all the separate things together. So this is a high level of what the game is. However, we're only going to be concentrating on this part here. We're not going to worry about the strict one, this part. We're just going to ignore this, but we're going to do this part here. Now this forms an infinite loop. Now I'm going to show you another graph, and this is what we're going to be concentrating on. So we start the game, init gets called, and it also has a callback in it, flash count, and flash count when it finishes calls this. That's why I haven't put a line between these two, because this gets called by a callback. And start beat also calls heartbeat, and heartbeat has a callback in it which calls start timeout. Okay. Now what this does is it plays a note. If you press the correct key, it will do nothing. But because we can't press a key, what this will do is this will go in an infinite loop like this. Okay. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to get it to this stage where it goes to an infinite loop. And then from there, we're going to continue and do this part where it does nothing, because this part would be if somebody pressed the correct key, then it would go to this branch. Okay, so I'm going to now continue. So if we look at that, init, that's the first thing, and then flash count. So init, flash count. However, if you look at the graph, init starts the game as well. So what we have to do is we have to put start game in here. But before I do that, I'm going to have a little talk about something. One sec. Now, what I'm going to talk about is callbacks, because they can get confusing. I'm going to minimize this. This function flash count takes it takes a callback. That means it takes a function as a parameter. Okay. So here I'm calling flash count. So to make things easy, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of this out, so I'll show you how to make it a bit easier. It has to take a function. So what you have to do is function. Okay, so that's what it's going to take. And if you're not using an arrow function, then you have to put bind this here. Okay. Now, that's what you have to do. So I'm passing a function to flash count, and it takes it here. Okay. So that's what I have to pass. This is the function I'm passing, this outer function. Now inside, I can put, for instance, I can put that in there. Now, when it gets to flash counts, I'm going to pass a function in. It's going to come here. It's going to start the set interval. it's gonna toggle that was this, and it's gonna pass in this. That's the function. It's gonna pass in that function into here, and then when it runs this function, right, this here callback, this is where it runs the function. So what that will be doing is it will be running this here. It will be running what is between these two lines. Okay. So if I want to put another function in there, for instance, I might want to do this. There may be another function called that. Okay. So that will run that, and it would also run that. Now, this function inside, to be honest, I haven't tested it, but that may require a bind this as well, but I haven't tested it, to be honest. However, what I'm gonna now do is so that's what you have to remember. You have to remember this. If you're using arrow functions, what you do is you take that function off and you put one of these here, and then you can take. You don't have to use bind this. Can you see? So it's exactly the same thing. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now fill in that function. And I'm using an arrow function, as you can see, so I don't have to use bind this. So it does get confusing. It's easy to sort of not know where you are, and if you make a mistake, it just won't work. So you always have to test these. Okay. So what we was doing was the first part, and this is init. Init calls flash count, and flash count calls start game. Start game calls heartbeat. So let me see, start game. Calls flash count. And that is flash count there. We don't have to do nothing to that, but this callback here, this is where heartbeat is going to get called. I mean start game. Can you see start game there? So it passes start game here, and it's going to get called when that flashing finishes. Can you see there? So now we have to make start game. Well, I'm going to paste it in there and I'm going to explain it. Okay, start game. We're just going to do a test here. That's a test. Now I need to create a variable called sequence. So let me check the model. Okay, I've got to create something in here called sequence, and that's going to take an array. Okay. Console log this model sequence push. So what this is doing is going to generate a random number between 0 and 3, and then it's going to push it on the array, the sequence array. And then and then we have to run that one there. So what I'm going to do is, this is calling a function called string number, and unfortunately we haven't created that yet. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create it. And that function is a one-liner. This simply adds the 0, like for instance, you got 0, 4, 0, 5. Otherwise, without this function, it wouldn't add the 0 at the beginning, so that's all that does. So it puts a random number, it pushes a random number in the sequence. It sets the level based on the number of things in the sequence. So when we push one number in, it's going to be equal to 1, and it's going to create the level like that. It's going to call the heartbeat, and the parameter is going to feed to the heartbeat is this model sequence, which is going to be an array, and it's going to set the state of the level to the level, which is a number. So it's going to change that. It's going to change this here to the number. So that's what start game is going to do. It's going to call heartbeat. Now, if we go to heartbeat, heartbeat isn't doing anything. Can you see this level of heartbeat? What it's doing? All it's doing is consoling log something. So what we have to do is we have to add a line to it so that it's one sec. Probably have to have a few lines to it. Okay, one sec. We have to add these lines to it. This set the keys active to true, so that makes the keys pressable. This runs another function called start timeout. This I'm going to leave it in there. This is just for troubleshooting. But in fact, I'm going to take it out. Okay, so we need this function called start timeout. Okay, let me just have a look. Okay. I'm going to minimize some of these things. Okay. As you can see, if I go back to the graph, that's the start timeout, so that's where we got to. And it's going to call a loser tone. So we have to do another function for loser tone. Okay, and that calls it here. As you can see, it's using an arrow function, so you don't need bind this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and create that loser tone. And as you can see, that'll be the last one. And then what I'll do is I'll go through it again. I'll test. I'll test it. Now the loser tone takes a callback, and it's going to be this start game. So after the loser tone gets played, it's going to automatically start the game. So that's where it completes the loop. Now I'll go through it again. Okay, one at a time. So we've got init. Let me just check something. Okay, we've got init, and that calls flash count. And I think it's got a callback in it that calls start game. So I'm going to show you that now. Init flash count start game. So let's look at them one at a time. So we've got prevent defaults. So we've got this flash count start game. So we fed this start game into flash count. Now let's go to flash count. Now flash count takes that start game here, and what it basically does, it flashes the lights. And this was one of the functions I showed you earlier. Okay. And then when it finishes flashing the lights, it's going to get to here, and then it's going to call that. It's going to call this, which is start game. That's what it's going to call. And then if we now go to start game, what's that going to do? It's going to console log game started. It's going to push a sequence in. It's going to set the level, and so it's going to light up the number here. It's going to start the heartbeat function, and it's going to pass in the array here. And then it's going to set the state of that to a number. For the first one, it's going to be 1. So it's going to get the count of the array. And this heartbeat function, let's go to that. In fact, let's just check something. Yeah, it calls heartbeat without a, yeah, there's no callback in the heartbeat. It's just giving it an array. Now the heartbeat function plays, this is where it plays the nodes. And then when it does it, it's got the value of stop, so it knows when it's finished. So as soon as it's finished, it will console log heartbeat finished. So it will show us that it's finished. It will set the key, because it's finished the tune, it will set the keys to active so that you can start using the keys. And then it will start the timeout. So for instance, if you don't press a key within 3 seconds, you get a timeout key. You get a loser sound, okay? So so after it does that, it runs start timeout. So we go to start timeout now. So start timeout, what does it do? If it times out, it does a pause for 3 seconds there. If it times out, it logs, you have timed out, and then it goes to the loser function and it passes in start game. So that's where the loop is. Okay. So it goes back to start game. So it plays the loser thing, whatever the loser thing is, and so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the loser thing in a bit. That's start game, and we're passing that to the loser. So if we find the loser, what does the loser do? It sets that, it changes that to whatever that is. It plays a loser tone, and then it flashes the count again, and it passes in the callback, which is start game. So this loser doesn't use the callback. What it does is it takes the callback here, it does them 2 lines, then it passes the callback to flash count. So let's go to flash count. Remember, the callback is start game. And if we go to flash count, what does that do? It flashes this light, it flashes, and then it does the callback here, and this time the callback is start game. So it goes around in a loop. And that should stay in a loop for infinity. So this is what it's doing. Start game, heartbeat, start timeout. You can't put any notes in, so it just goes round and round. So let's give it a test. So I've left it there. So it's in an infinite loop. Let me just turn the volume down. So we can't press any keys. I can see one thing not working. So I'm gonna have to check something. When it's playing keys and I put the mouse there, it lights up the hand. So I'm gonna have to check why that's doing that. Anyway, I'm gonna stop the video here, and I'll continue this on our other video. Thanks for listening. Bye.